Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers beat the Columbus Blue Jackets 4-0 in a pivotal win in the Eastern Conference playoff race. Really one of the best played games by the Rangers defensively, just spectacular. And it got better and better as the game went on. They knew the importance of this game, and I'm sure Columbus did as well. Columbus now, they've have a bit of a shutout streak going where they have not scored in a couple of games. They were shut out last game home against Vegas, now shut out here home against the Rangers. And Igor Shesterkin is the one that gets the shutout. And actually, it was only 21 saves, but looked really sharp and was tested more so earlier in the game than later. But now he had faced Columbus twice this season and got shutouts in both games. Which again goes back to my point about the fact that it was disappointing that he didn't play in that second game of back-to-back at MSG last week, where Jonathan Quick played. The Rangers gave up 7 goals. Again, the Rangers didn't play well, but still, that was disappointing. And it's going to be interesting to see, to a lesser degree, whether for tomorrow's game against Edmonton, if they have Igor go back-to-back. That typically has not been the case. Typically, it's split between Igor and Quick. My hunch is that they do come to their senses and go with Shesterkin. I'm not saying that with 100% guarantee. And look, obviously the game against Edmonton is, has less stakes than the Columbus games, but let's just, table that conversation for later in the episode. Just a really, really fine game defensively by the Rangers. Really one of the most impressive games I've seen them play this season. And it goes to show, like, when there's a full-on commitment and a team buy-in, they can be successful. And like I've said, like, they have to think defense first. And I know that it sounds cliche, but really with this team especially, if they can do that, that's going to give them the best chance of winning. And that's what happened here. They deserve the win. This ends up being a pretty successful road trip where it's not as if they even played bad against Winnipeg. They end up losing that game 2-1. And again, not a game to be ashamed about at all. And then Minnesota, they get the win where I thought they played well and they earned the 2 points. They didn't get it until overtime, but they got it. And in this game, just really excellent work. Pretty much from start to finish, even when it was bad, it was still, you felt pretty good about it, which is not something that we've said a lot with Ranger games this year, where like when they're up, and that's the thing with Rangers, as I've said, they're a much different team when they take the lead. Not to say that they haven't made their fair share of mistakes with the lead, but the Rangers, by and large, have had trouble, coming from behind. It's happened a little bit better lately, but still haven't done so when trailing by 2 goals. I've mentioned that ad nauseum. But just the fact they came out of that first period 1-0, and then you come out of the second period 2-0, and it's just like, it was unbelievable, really. That third period was just to a T. And you want to kind of savor that. And because, again, it's not really been a calling card where you're just getting this structurally sound. There was an aggressiveness to it as well. Like, I didn't feel like they were sitting back. It was a very low event third period, which is exactly what the Rangers wanted. But it was one of those, they're just like sitting in their zone and Columbus was swarming. It wasn't like that. It was the Rangers felt like they were very much in control. And just what it means to the standings is gigantic. Now, a lot of people, and I get it, are jumping to the fact that, okay, now that at day's end, the Rangers are in a playoff spot. Yes, they are, but a couple of things that I want to say on that. First off, there's still 15 games left for the Rangers, so still a lot of time. But more importantly, Montreal did win. And so points percentage-wise, Montreal is still technically ahead there. So I would have been more sort of on that like wave of, okay, yeah, like Rangers are, because here's the thing. Rangers are legitimately ahead of Columbus. They are 2 points ahead of Columbus. And while Columbus does have the game in hand, even if Columbus won that game in hand, they would be tied, but the Rangers would have the tiebreaker based on more regulation wins, right? So they are clearly ahead of Columbus for now. And again, like there's still so much to go. It's still very close. But with Montreal, by points percentage, which is what I've always gone based off of, for better or worse, right? So even if the Rangers were in a situation where they weren't in the technical playoff position, but they had better points percentage, I would go by that more so. And so there's still a lot of work to be, long story short, there's still a lot of work to be done, but I can't say enough how big this was. But let's say it goes the other way. Let's say Columbus gets the 2 points. Then all of a sudden you're looking at a situation where you're back by 2 points and Columbus has the game in hand, which is tough. It is. Especially with the fact that Ottawa keeps winning and winning and winning. Like, it feels as if catching them is going to be really, really challenging. Rangers are 5 points behind them, and Ottawa has a game in hand. Who might be more attainable is the Devils. The Rangers are 6 points behind the Devils, and the Rangers have a game in hand and play them one more time. So it's not out of the question that the Devils could be caught, but even that is still a bit of a tough hill to climb. Like I've said, this one spot that's available is the one to get, and beating Columbus was big. And so the season series ends with Columbus, where the Rangers took 6 points to Columbus's 3. I'll take that. Definitely. Rangers picked up 3 wins within that. That's pretty much what it was. I mean, the Rangers got 3 wins to Columbus's 1. The only little caveat there is that Columbus picked up a shootout point in one of the Rangers wins. So that's the key, right? Like, it's not going to be perfect, but like, even Rangers versus Montreal, Rangers 5 points, Montreal 2. And again, that last game leaves a little bit of a bitter taste in your mouth, that Montreal one, but still, overall. And here's the thing too, within Montreal and Columbus, there were some close, very close wins as well. Like the Rangers beating Montreal at MSG on a late Capo Caco goal, where the Rangers got 2 points, Montreal got none. Where at the time it didn't really feel like much because Montreal was really low in the standings. That ends up being big, right? So you can't say the Rangers haven't had their clutch victories in these key matchups. And then the other one with Rangers Columbus, a little over a month ago in Columbus, where the Rangers were able to win in regulation on that late Will Cooley goal. Really, really big. And then not for nothing, just the fact the Rangers did win that shootout at Madison Square Garden on January 18th versus Columbus. So they're making the most out of the situations against their competition. They need to do a lot better against the better teams in the NHL, but that's a conversation for another day. As far as the lineup is concerned, let's discuss defense, because things stay the same for the forwards. Defense, Adam Fox makes his return, and that was a great sight to see. You could tell that he was a little bit rusty at the start, and he needed to kind of get into a little bit of a rhythm, which I felt like he did as time went on. But getting him back in there is crucial. And the Rangers only had 1 power play chance. They didn't score on it, but it did look a lot better. They did have a lot of chances on it. And here's the other thing, too. Zach Jones stays in the lineup. And you know what? Deservedly so. More so on account of Carson Soucy really being the odd man out, and he needed to be. Carson Soucy was being really used as the 6th defenseman. That's where, as much as I felt like, okay, Fox for Jones on a 1-for-1 made sense as a replacement situation, but Carson Soucy had been doing so poorly that it kind of felt like it made sense. And you need wins. Look, if the Rangers were in a position where they could kind of, where they had a little bit of a cushion and Soucy's a new acquisition, maybe you go about it a little bit differently. Soucy is under contract next season. I do think that he's still part of their overall plans. But the fact of the matter is he has not looked good. And so your defensive healthy scratches continues to be Calvin DeHaan, and now it's Carson Soucy, and I would let it continue to be that way. Also, as far as the defensive pairs, it made sense what they did. You do, if you can, want to stick with Keandre Miller and Borgen. Now, my whole thing, if Soucy had been playing well, and they went with him and they sat Zach Jones somehow, then my point was, okay, maybe for the fact that Soucy and Borgen have played together in Seattle, maybe you consider it. But in this scenario, you definitely leave Keandre and Borgen together, which they did. That's really been like their defensive shutdown pair. And really, it's what the coaching staff and team had hoped that Miller Trouba would be. But I think that this has been much more effective, Miller and Borgen, to this point. They've provided very good chemistry, and Keandre has. We talk about Borgen a lot and what he's done since coming from Seattle, but Keandre's play has really gotten a lot better with Borgen as his partner. But what they did when you then look at the rest of the defense is they had Vakanainen with Fox and Jones with Schneider. And so essentially they broke up Vakanainen with Schneider, which again, like I have no problem with that based on the options. You could have gotten funky and gone with like Schneider on his left side with Fox and like Jones with Vakanainen where one of them was on their offside like that. You could have done that, but then you're making 2 pairs of where you have players that are kind of out of position. So this made sense. And Vakanainen, where I thought he had some early struggles in this game, really settled in. And I think like that was good enough. Like I really think you have to look at it as Miller Borgen is kind of your number 1 shutdown pair right now. But obviously Vakanainen and Fox is going to get a lot of time. Fox doing what he does naturally, his partner will get a lot of ice time, like kind of what happened with Ryan Lindgren. And then Jones Schneider is your third pair, but they got a lot of time too. Like it wasn't as if like it was anything drastic. The ice times were all fairly even. And Jones Schneider is a pair that's come a long way. It's one that I was very skeptical of, like just as recently as last season. I remember saying a lot like, hey, like this is a disaster pair. But as they've gotten older, a little more experience, like it's one that you can, again, and for the fact that even in those bad times that they had that experience together, I think helps them now. So I don't know if this is going to be what it sticks to. Like, look, I don't think Carson Soucy is just going to be completely forgotten about. Whereas like Calvin DeHaan, they don't really have much investment in him. So I think for him getting back in the lineup, it's a little unfair, but I actually thought he was not that bad. I think it's going to be tough for him to get back in with that injury. Soucy's a different story. I still think that, unfortunately for Zach Jones, he is a bit on the chopping block, but I think everything being equal, I'd prefer it be this way. Soucy has not looked good. Zach Jones gives you a little bit of a different look. And, if he's going to be sound as a defensive pair with Braden Schneider, I'm fine with it. So that's what it looked like. For forwards, like I said, it was the same. It was the same as it's been. And so, again, Arthur Kaliev, he's in New York being evaluated. No new news there. And so that leaves you with your one healthy scratch being Juuso Parssinen. So if you think about it, the three healthy scratches, and Kaliev I'd consider not a healthy scratch, more of a day-to-day situation. The three were all trade deadline type transactions and acquisitions with Parson and DeHaan coming from Colorado and Soucy coming from Vancouver. But hey, sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles. And to be fair, too, like, especially in the case of the Colorado pickups, you kind of knew that those DeHaan and Parson, to me, were never guarantees to be lined up anyway. And in the case of Parson, I think we'll see him in there again, probably, but I'm completely fine, based on what I saw, with having him out of the lineup. So let's discuss this game. The matchup was Danil Tarasov against Igor Shesterkin, and Tarasov has had some success against the Rangers. His numbers are not very good this season overall, but he did have that. He played very well in that 1-0 Ranger win in the shootout. The first matchup between these teams, it was Tarasov. Then the last week, he wasn't as good, but he won 7-3. He was a part of the win. So they went with Tarasov. What was very evident in this game was his puck handling is not very good, and it hurt Columbus. So the Rangers get out on top early. And what I'll say before that is, early on, it did have a feeling of, okay, this could be a lot of goal scoring on both sides. It had that feeling. 5 to 10 minutes into this game, it's okay, this is going to be a shootout. A shootout in the way of, 5-3, like 6-4, that type of game. It gave me that feeling. And, very early on, Columbus had some chances, but at 1:43, Alexis Lafrenière scores his 15th goal of the season, assisted by Mika Zibanejad, and gives Zibanejad all the credit. Lafrenière gets off the schneid, which is very important. I thought Lafrenière actually did have a very good game. This is Lafreniere's best game in a long time. But Mika has just been so engaged, physically, just in the right position. Like, you can just tell there's a night and day difference, and it's great to see. It's been this way now for a couple of months, but really, like, in this game, it was just like he wasn't going to be stopped. This is the player that we've seen in the past, and it's a welcome sight. So Zibanejad basically just, kind of, how would I describe it? I believe Damon Severson, the former Devil, was the defenseman. Zibanejad kind of pokes away from him, and it goes into the corner. And it's kind of miscommunication between Tarasov and Severson, and Mika does a good job of sort of just poking, a little bit of a poke check, gets the puck towards the middle of the ice through Tarasov, and Lafrenière happens to be there, and on his backhand scores into the semi-empty net. And it makes it 1-0 Rangers, which, to the point I want to make as well, that little line tweak where Lafrenière is now with Miller and Zibanejad and Cooley is with Panarin and Trocheck, I like it so far. Doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. Doesn't mean it's going to be effective for a while. But I think that was one that needed to happen. I laid it out last episode. I'm not going to again, but this is another example of a game where, yes, like, these are combinations that have a chance to work, and I'm happy about it. So that makes it 1-0 Rangers. But, a lot of good chances for Columbus. It doesn't help that at 4:55, JT Miller is called for slashing Kent Johnson. Not a good penalty. We've seen JT take some penalties lately, but the Rangers were able to kill this off, and the penalty kill did a nice job. But again, there were some opportunities, but, still, you left the first period, and the Rangers would be leading 1-0 into the first. Now, granted, Columbus outshot the Rangers 9-4, which doesn't tell the entire story, but I felt pretty good after that period. The fact the Rangers had the lead, um, it wasn't a perfect period, but you could tell it was getting better. And in the second period, that couldn't have been more true. It really did get a lot better. Now, what ends up happening is a little before the halfway point of the second period, there is a very big time opportunity by Columbus where Zach Werenski, who's just an absolute beast. Werenski is so good. He makes a nice poke check on a play where Will Cooley's trying to get the puck out of the zone. He can't do it. And so the Ranger forwards are kind of going up, and it ends up in sort of a mini breakaway for Voronkov. And he makes a nice move around Igor, but somehow it doesn't go in. It goes off the far post. And maybe Trocheck getting back may have caused a little bit of change in direction slightly. It might have not meant anything, but Trocheck did kind of get a piece of him, and it doesn't go in. I mean, I thought for sure that was going in, and it stays 1-0 Rangers. But after that, Rangers take a penalty. Zach Jones holds Boone Jenner at 9-12. But again, Zach Jones lately, similar to JT Miller, Zach Jones has been taking a lot of penalties, so he has to stay out of the box as well, because I feel like he's been taken advantage of in certain situations. I mean, I don't know. Could they have not called that? Yes, but I also understand from their vantage point why they did. And the Rangers kill that off as well. And soon thereafter, very soon thereafter, the Rangers take a 2-0 lead, and it would be Artemi Panarin, the former Blue Jacket, scoring his 29th goal of the season, assisted by Lafrenière and Borgen. So give Lafrenière 2 points on the night with that. And just Panarin just really was looking very, very dangerous in this game. And it's a play where Borgen gets it behind the net. Lafrenière tips it, and then Panarin just goes to work on his left side and takes it towards the middle of the ice. Vincent Trocheck causing a little bit of a screen. Like, he kind of goes in front of Panarin, and just as he's doing that, Panarin just fires it off, and it kind of goes maybe under Terrace. It goes off of Terrace, maybe under his armpit or his shoulder area, and it's a goal. And it would be blocker side, and it gives the Rangers a 2-0 lead. So that was important to get that next goal right there. And so what could have been a tie game ends up being a 2-0 Ranger lead. And then the Rangers finally get a power play, and it's Panarin that draws it. Marchenko trips him at 17:01. And this is where, with Fox back, they got chances. I mean, I can think about Zibanejad on a one-timer, and then Kreider with a couple of opportunities, close in. They weren't able to convert, but I will say that, just on the one chance, you hope for more success. It's crazy. I mean, this Ranger power play is like 24th in the league, which is, with the personnel, just should not be that way. So you hope that if that number can get better, then the Rangers will be in, a lot better shape as far as making the playoffs. So Rangers have a 2-0 lead going to the third, and this was just a great job by them. Sure, they didn't get their first shot on goal in that period until honestly close to halfway through the third. Truly. But nonetheless, they were able to do what they had to do. What was good about this game is the fact that, like, the biggest thing, the top six, like the top players were buying it specifically. They were on their game. That's what I like to see, and they were being rewarded on the score sheet, but that's what stood out, right? Because you know what you're going to get. The bottom six and more of the depth players, they're always going to give you most of that hardworking style. And we've seen that, and they've been effective. But to get it from the top players, you could tell they wanted this game badly. They knew they needed it, and they got it. So in the third period, eventually, after a lot of good work, at 14:38, Vincent Trocheck scores his 19th goal of the season from Panarin and Cooley. And this is simply a play where Boone Jenner turns it over in the neutral zone. Nice play by Will Cooley to start it. And he kind of just throws it towards Panarin. It's a 2-on-1 situation. Panarin finds Trocheck, who scores past Tarasov. So that line gets in on the act. It makes it 3-0 Rangers. And then Braden Schneider trips Marchenko at 16:01. So Columbus pulls the goalie down by 3 with 4 minutes left, hoping for something. And what it leads to is an empty net goal. Goes down as short-handed goal, so another one for the Rangers. Kind of a cheap one, but that's the way it is in these situations. And it's Vincent Trocheck again. His second goal of the game, 20th of the season from JT Miller and Adam Fox. So Adam Fox gets a point in his return. So Rangers take a 4-0 lead, and they win by that score. So it's another Igor shutout. Is again, 5th of the season, second against Columbus, and he has a very long shutout streak that dates back to, I guess, last season, which goes upwards of maybe 140 minutes. So, kind of 2 games and maybe a period or, a period plus, where he has not allowed a goal against Columbus, which is really, really good. And so now the Rangers improved to 33, 28, and 6. And now it's a showdown with the Edmonton Oilers, a team that, and I guess in some ways things could come full circle. The Rangers are still looking for that 3-game win streak. And this one's going to be tough, like another one where this is going to be a tough game for a number of reasons. And where things started to go really wrong for the Rangers was right around the time where the Rangers went to Calgary and then Edmonton. And that started this really bad malaise where the Rangers just could not find themselves, and it led them to a point where they are now, where they're fighting for a playoff spot. Edmonton has not been playing their best hockey lately. Goals have been a little bit hard to come by for them. They're coming off of a 2-1 overtime win against the Islanders. They are, kind of battling it out in the Pacific Division, for seeding. They're going to make the playoffs for sure, but hopes of winning the division, a little bit tough. They're 6 points behind Vegas, but they're certainly right there with the LA Kings for that number 2 spot and home ice advantage in the first round. So certainly a lot on the line for Edmonton. Leon Draisaitl sitting on 49 goals. He just got 100 points. So Draisaitl, one more goal and it's 50, and that could come at MSG. But the good thing about this back-to-back, whether it's Igor or not, and I hope that it is Igor, is that the way the Rangers played this game against Columbus, I think just goes, yes, there's a lot of emotional investment, even if it didn't seem that way. It was kind of like, it almost felt the Rangers didn't break a sweat in some ways, even though there was so much hard work to be done. They did it in such a sort of effortless type of way. However, you can't really say it enough about the meaning of this Columbus game. And so therefore this Edmonton game, granted it's McDavid, granted it's Draisaitl, but now coming back home, which is always a tough thing to do, right? They went from Winnipeg to Minnesota to Columbus. I'm hoping the Rangers can my hope here is just to kind of grind it out, keep it close, get it to overtime. Now, the thing with Edmonton is getting it to overtime is just a death trap because they really have so much skill and talent. They're very good in the overtime, but it's just one of those sorts of things, right? If you can get a point, I think that can be very useful. But getting that 3-game winning streak, I think, is something that you can't take for granted. They have not had a 3-game winning streak since around the middle of November. We are coming up now on 4 months of not having a 3-game winning streak. So here's another opportunity to do so. And then from there, this Edmonton game will start a 4 games at Madison Square Garden. Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto, Vancouver. Weirdly, all Canadian teams. I got to think that is very much coincidental, but that's the way that the schedule kind of lines up. And if you can win this Edmonton game, I feel as if maybe you could really get something going. Not to say that the games after that, I mean, those are teams that are all in playoff fights or in playoff positions. So it's not easy, but I think that if you can get this Edmonton game, it can really catapult you to a position where maybe you start to get into a spot where, the playoff, where you're legitimately in a playoff spot. Because right now they're not there yet. They are very much in a fight, and with 15 games to go, there's so much work to be done. However, in summary, this was a massive, massive regulation win against Columbus where they really deserved it. They played the way you had to play. And now we'll see what happens. The question mark now, will Igor Shesterkin start against Edmonton? I think that they might have learned. I mean, it's not even necessarily learning from a mistake because I still don't think that you can. That was just not the right thing to do then. And to me, this is still a separate issue, but it's somewhat related. And I think that based on Igor's somewhat light workload and knowing what Edmonton's capable of, to put that against Quick, I think is something I wouldn't want to do. So I'm going to have a little bit of faith that they go with Shesterkin. And we'll see what happens. But a big game coming up. It's a quick turnaround, but the Rangers should be very proud of themselves. They get, look, it's not a must-win game, but pretty damn close to it. And they're able to finish off the season series with Columbus with a big, big win in Columbus. It's a 4-0 victory. And now they will head home for the second game of back-to-back at Madison Square Garden against the Edmonton Oilers.